When writing an informative introduction, there are many pieces a student could include in that first paragraph. But rather than teaching students a recipe where everybody's introduction starts to sound the same, consider teaching them optional facets, ingredients, different elements that they could put in this first paragraph. Within this video article, I will reveal 6 different ingredients that could go in an informative introduction. And regardless of which ones are grade appropriate and the ones you choose to introduce, make sure that we're teaching them one by one in their own separate mini lessons. The first piece of the introduction puzzle is obvious. Students have to identify or state the topic, the subject matter that they're writing about. Now, initially, students do this literally. They announce it. They say something like, I'm going to write about turtles, or this essay is about To Kill a Mockingbird. What we need them to do is mention the topic or the subject, that key word or phrase within the first sentence. Maybe something more like, there are 63 types of turtles, or Harper Lee wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. But that first sentence is not an introduction. We're not done. We need to teach students to write an introductory paragraph. So what else do we put in it? What should we teach them? Well, remember, it's informative writing. We're informing the reader. We're teaching the reader. So one of the things to consider is they may not know much about this topic, and we need to provide some background knowledge. This might come in the form of introducing or defining some key words. Maybe it's the topic or subject matter itself, or a couple key concepts. In addition to a sentence or two that defines a concept, maybe we also need to introduce the relevant people. People might be individuals or cultures, groups, tribes, organizations. All of this information is adding background knowledge in the introduction. Now, the topic may have nothing to do with people, but setting becomes important. And the students could include a sentence or two about the culture, the habitat, the season, the timing, the era. This notion of when and where could be introduced to the reader early in that first paragraph. Let me pause for a minute before I reveal the last 2 optional ingredients to an informative introduction, and I want to switch to a smaller set of puzzle pieces. Once you've introduced a couple different ingredients to an informative introduction, show students how they can adjust the order of the different pieces, and they can even delete information that isn't relevant. This is the notion of crafting an introduction with the most relevant information, rather than having students all follow a recipe where every sentence is serving a purpose and they all sound like a recipe of the same thing. Students realize that they can adjust, add, delete, flip-flop the order, all for the sake of the reader. Now, those 4 ingredients provide a solid foundation for students to write introductions about expository topics. But there are a couple others, depending on the writing prompt or the task or the purpose, that might be great to introduce. If we're writing about a problem, students could actually start by stating the problem. And one of my favorite ways to have students introduce a problem in the introduction is through a vignette. A little scene, a snapshot, a moment, not a story, but just an opportunity to put the reader in a scenario where the problem comes to light. If a student starts with such a vignette, then they could follow it with a definition and the identification of keywords and the topic and the thesis statement. Do you see what's happening with all of these ingredients? Students now can move from an introductory statement to a full-blown paragraph. We're giving them the opportunity to build, to craft an introduction. Let me throw out one more option, and that is, what if they're writing about their reading? And so the building of background knowledge comes in the form of summarizing the texts they've read. There might be a sentence or two that provides a synopsis of the text that was read, and a little background on the main setting and some key characters. But of course, we'll end with our thesis statement, identifying the topic or subject matter we're writing about regarding this text. Now, there are many other ingredients that could be part of an informative introduction, but those are 6 of my favorites and students as well. Let me end with just a quick reference to the hook that many teachers talk about. What I like about this approach is that any of the 6 ingredients could be the hook. They could be the first sentence if the fact is startling enough. If the information is interesting enough, it could be the first sentence. And then students simply build the rest of the paragraph after that.